Hi everyone, today I'm going to be answering some questions for you for the 10-minute interview with Ram Records. So, the first Ram Records tune I ever bought, I believe that was something by Mind Vortex I think it was 2014's Mind Vortex Colors EP, because I remember hearing that thing at a dubstep party out of all things, and I remember just filming it and just being like, this gotta be something else, and it was especially because of Underworld. I love that track and I just had to get it. So my first rave, it was actually an illegal rave when I was like 15 or something. I remember having to go through the forest with like 3 or 4 of my mates I knew at the time, and we were just plowing through the mud and the rain and everything, and we ended up like underneath this bridge somewhere in a forest, and it was amazing, and it was so loud, and it was all these new people, and actually the Ram live set, which I'm recording, is about a couple hundred meters from there, so it's also quite nostalgic for me. So I have actually been DJing for like close to 10 years, but my serious gigs have all been like within the last year or two, because that's when I've been starting to take production seriously. And I've got to say, the most fun I've had so far is at Liquidity Festival 2022 it was, where I did like a multi-genre set where I kind of decided that I'm gonna play like maybe 20% drum and bass, and the rest was just all influences and inspiration from other genres. And I remember the DJ set, like the gear, the sun was shining on it from an angle, so you could barely see the screen. On top of that, the gear was so hot that you could get like second-degree burns on your fingers if you were to touch the gear for like longer than a few seconds. So it was very difficult, but it was like a hell of a lot of fun, and really one of the most memorable DJ sets that I've ever had. Now, the DJ that I looked up to most at the time, I think that originated at the first actual legal party I went to, which was Major League at Melkweg. And you had Tantrum Desire, the Prototypes, Dimension playing there. And I remember Tantrum Desire being like next level, like the tunes that I'd been hearing on YouTube, on SoundCloud. I could finally be hearing that stuff live. And I don't know, that those sets played there just had such an impact on me that it's definitely like the DJ I'd really looked up to at the time, and thinking like, one day I'll be there like at the big stage, but I'll have to see. So if you were to take everyone and see who's had the biggest influence on me, it's got to be my dad, because he was also a DJ and a producer in the early 2000s. He mostly made house music, but I mean, throughout my childhood, I've always been like exposed to him making music at home, him always having loud music on and always talking about releasing and playing. And I mean, he's retiring from that now, since he's like almost 60 years old at the time. But I mean, his influence, you just can't deny it. He's always had this appreciation for when I got something going, when I started a project. He was always happy to hear, and I know without that little push and that sort of appreciation, I don't know if I would have been where I am now. So the first one's going to be Perfect Mandem Overture. You can also hear that in my set. I just love that. The sound design is just top notch, and I love the chords in it. Inside Info Navigator is going to be my number 2. It's really technical. It's still got that flow, that funk, and I'm always about that funk. And talking about that, my number 3 is going to be Mob Tactics with Joe Mangle. It's just something about these old school tracks which still carry the funk in like a more rolly, neuro kind of track, I believe. And that's really my weak spot. Producers, take note. So I've been producing seriously for about 2 to 3 years now, or at least that's when I actually started making music on my now current computer. Before that, I did have like a MacBook, and I kind of was messing around with some Logic and with GarageBand, and I was kind of like messing around, not really taking it very seriously. But yeah, I think the end of 2019 is when I really thought like, right, let's actually take this stuff seriously. So the thing is, these two singles kind of both came together through really odd means. I mean, one of them actually started out as a remix contest for like through Tea and Sugar, I believe, which like they had an intro jingle for this talent show, and they asked me to remix it, but it wasn't really anything official. It was mostly just for shits and giggles. But when I was trying to like improve my sound, I kind of took that as a starting point, and then turn it into an actual full track. And the other one actually started out as a remix competition for Dosa and Locust through their Discord, which I ended up like getting the rights to and being able to release that for myself. So both of these tunes actually came from contests which had nothing to do with each other. So you can really see how these two tunes are kind of a landmark for a certain spot in my career. So a tip I would definitely give is that the composition should come way before you're worrying about like mixing and mastering, because if you have a good idea but it sounds kind of whack, you're going to get feedback on that, and the mixdown is something that usually improves over time without you even noticing, because you've heard the phrase just use your ears, and I mean, I'm now starting to notice that it's more true than ever. It's like the mixdown and how you make it come across on a big system, that's mostly just experience and knowing what sounds good and what doesn't. What you can actually learn at the beginning through maybe tutorials or just trying it out yourself, it's mostly by just compositioning and call and response and like knowing the structure of a song, and so you kind of know what you're doing. And once you get that going, then eventually your ears are going to start to pick up what sounds good and what doesn't. Oh, and another thing, you don't actually need that much gear, because my setup is not that fancy either. I've just got everything I need, and once I'm noticing that I'm starting to reach a bottleneck with my gear, for example, I think I need better speakers or better treatment, I'm only gonna do those upgrades when I feel like my current setup is the thing limiting me, instead of maybe my abilities or my creativity or something. So any mentions? Yes. I'm just gonna give a great shout out to like a couple friends of mine who've helped me in the past, of just motivating me to keep going, and just who I've somehow inspired to start making music as well. And this has got to go to Yepa B, which he's really into. Oh, can I do that again? So yeah, I actually do have some shout outs for a couple of my friends who've helped me a lot in the start in terms of like motivating me, telling me to keep going, and like me telling them to keep going, because they also like started out themselves. And that's got to go to Yepa B, and he's mostly into making lo-fi beats for Bitwalking, also working on some D&B collabs, so that should be fun. It's gonna go to Redhead, or Solus Cult. He's also more into dubstep and neuro kind of sound, but I mean, yeah, he's just always been there. He's always motivated me. He's always like making jokes about my sound and everything, but in a good way, and it's really been inspiring.